Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hey there, and welcome to Side Quests. My name's Connor. I'm a host and producer with the Lore Party Podcast Network, and I'm oh so pleased to be a part of Side Quests right here on Fun and Games, especially since I get to talk to you about Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, a game I love, and I think you just might love it too if you give it a chance. Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning was released in early 2012, and you might have heard about a remaster called Re-Reckoning that came out in September of 2020. Now, coming out in early 2012 turned out to be a bit of bad timing for Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning because another little game you might have heard of came out in late 2011 called Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. And Kingdoms of Amalur got a little bit overshadowed. But I contend that it's a hidden gem well worth a try from any RPG fan, third-person adventure fan, fans of action-adventure games. It has a lot to offer. But it had a bit of a tumultuous development cycle involving numerous scandals and mismanagement and some sketchy tax incentives from the state of Rhode Island and former baseball players. The whole thing behind the studio and the production process, that's a whole other story that would be fun to get into, but that process did give us a truly beautiful, engrossing, and unique RPG experience. I mean, this game can boast the talents of such legends as Todd McFarlane, who directed the game's artwork and art direction, and R.A. Salvatore, who scripted the game and fleshed out the lore of the setting. There were some big names and a lot of talent attached to this project, and it shows. I mean, let's start with the visuals. Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning will treat your eyes to gorgeous and varied environments. There are 5 different main regions the game takes place in, not counting the DLC areas, and every zone you find yourself in is a treat for the senses. There are details that draw the eye and immerse you in the world. Whether it's the enchanted forests of Dalentarth, the dry sand dunes and cliffs of Datyr, the rolling green hills of the plains of Arethel, the mysterious, brooding swamps of Cluricon, or the foreboding crystal palaces of Alabastra, there's always something new to see, and always something to do. The open world is alive with color and mystery, leading you along and drawing you in as you pursue your various quests. Similarly, the creature design is inspired and inventive as you find yourself battling everything from mischievous little sprites that fly around and zap you with magic, or terrifying bog thrushes that try to lash you to death with their spined limbs. Everything is rendered with incredible attention to detail. But what about you, the player? Well, in Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, you're put in the shoes of a character who died and was resurrected by experimental magics. Therefore, your destiny is unbound from the tapestry of fate, and the future is yours to mold. Which brings us to character builds. You see, while most RPGs have a class or a perk system, Kingdoms of Amalur presents you with a destinies system, which grants you passive bonuses based on the abilities you invest in, empowering you to shape your character according to your preferred playstyle. There are 3 ability trees to pick and choose from. Might, for those inclined to swing big weapons around. Finesse, for you sneaky backstabbers out there. And Sorcery, for those big brain types who want to weaponize the elements. These ability trees not only grant you powerful spells and combat skills, they also determine what weapons and armor you can use effectively. And here's the beauty of the ability trees and the destiny system. You can invest freely in 1, 2, or even all 3 of these trees to specialize, generalize, or build a hybrid destiny as you see fit. Do you think you're destined to be the mightiest warrior in all of Amalur? Then put every point you get into the Might tree. Want to be an agile rogue who also wields devastating magic spells? Spread your points out among the Finesse and Sorcery trees. There's even a universalist approach, someone who puts points in all 3 trees. You're not pinned down by anything. There are no wrong answers. You can even visit a special NPC called a Fate Weaver anytime you want to reset your ability points so you can try out a new destiny and see what works for you. Then you've got the skills. Character builds are rounded out by a skill system featuring options like alchemy, stealth, lockpicking, smithing, persuasion, and other talents that can make your adventure a little easier or just more interesting. 4 playable races give you different skill point bonuses upon character creation, but nearly any build or gameplay approach you could think of is viable for all 4 races. You're also given the option to choose a deity to devote yourself to, which grants an extra minor bonus like poison resistance or mana regeneration. Or you can choose to follow no god in particular and gain a small experience point bonus, which is a nice touch. What I love about this is that it gives the player total freedom, but it also creates a sense of feedback and gameplay rewards. Listen, I love Skyrim. Who doesn't, right? But there's something about the perk system that feels, untethered. It doesn't feel like I'm really defining my character. In Amalur, as you build up your ability points and you start to shape your character, the destiny system is there to reward you and give you a mantle that you can feel proud of. My main character in my current playthrough has an even balance of ability points invested in might and sorcery, and at a certain level, the destiny system rewards me with the title of champion, with passive bonuses like the ability to generate mana from any damage I take from enemies. It's such a cool way to incentivize the player to build toward a destiny that fits their approach. Then once you've made your character and you have set off into the world, you go about the business of finding out who you are, how you died, why you came back, and what's going on with your crazy, weird, fate-bending powers. Oh, yeah, there's powers. As the main character, obviously, you have access to an ultimate move, basically, called Reckoning Mode. When your Reckoning meter fills up by dealing damage and taking it and killing enemies, you can enter Reckoning Mode, where you deal insane amounts of damage, you move faster than your enemies, and you can start wiping them out with barely any effort. And then once your enemies are weakened, you can fate shift them, pulling off extraordinary cinematic execution moves, while also granting you a hefty experience point bonus. So, the game goes out of its way to make it clear to you that you are special and you are here to change the world. But all of this is happening against the backdrop of a genocidal war waged by the Winter Fae court against the younger races inhabiting Amalur. Now, I'm a fan of R.A. Salvatore's novels, so maybe the story has a special place in my heart for that reason, but I still find it very interesting and deep. You see, for centuries, humans and elves have lived in the Faelands peacefully alongside the native Fae kingdoms, the Summer Court to the west and the Winter Court to the east. Immortal, wise, and intrinsically connected to the world itself, the Fae have generally tolerated these settlers, and things were good for a while. That is until a maniacal Fae warlord named Gadflow usurped control of the Winter Court, raised an army calling itself the Tuatha, and swore death upon every quote-unquote child of dust that he set his sights upon. Your character's journey will bring them into conflict with Gadflow and the dark, hidden power that he covets. But I'll leave the rest for you to find out. What I find great about Reckoning's story is that it's substantial enough to motivate the player without being overtly intrusive. You can pursue the main quest without too much urgency, and side quests don't feel like unnecessary distractions or wastes of time as a result. Speaking of quests, whether it's main story, side quests, faction quests, or anything in between, of course there's death, blood, and mayhem involved. I mean, what RPG would be complete without combat, right? And I feel combat is another hallmark that really sets Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning apart. It's what I like to call a skill-based approach to action-adventure RPG combat. You're not just standing there wailing on your enemy with a sword until they fall over and cough up the gold coins. The game gives you access to special moves like parries and counterattacks, dodges, teleports, knockups and air juggles, all kinds of options to add variety and change up the pace of combat. And even if you build a tanky warrior type with heavy armor and a lot of health, it's still not a good idea to just stand there and take the hits. Dodges and blocking and timing your attacks to when your enemy's vulnerable are all keys to success. This approach keeps the player engaged. Combat isn't just a rote numbers game where if you have enough mana you can spell down anything that comes near you. It's tense, it's visceral. Most important, it's fun. Look, Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning is nowhere near a perfect game. It actually began production as an MMORPG that was eventually reformatted into a single-player experience, and you can tell by the way the game world eventually came together. Not to mention the somewhat stiff character animations and the fetch quests, of which there are a few too many, but for every boring dialogue segment, there's a lore-rich conversation that tells you something memorable about the world you're in. And for every tedious errand you're sent on, there's also a gripping series of faction quests or a one-off dungeon that gives you a thrilling romp through deadly traps and vicious enemies. And there's always that gratifying moment you unlock an awesome new ability and use it on the next unsuspecting kobold you come across. Those are the moments that make this game special to me. And I hope that if you try it, you'll get some of those special moments out of it too. Well, that's about all I have time for, but if you enjoy third-person action-adventure games with satisfying, skill-based combat, rich backstories, and deep character customization, then the Re-Reckoning edition of Kingdoms of Amalur might be worth checking out. You can also still get the original version, which I think holds up just fine. Until next time, I've been Connor Howard, thanks for listening, and happy gaming.
Hey there, my name's Abuzafar, and I'm the creator of the Lore Party podcast. It's a show about our favorite video game universes and the stories they tell. What does that mean exactly? Well, we don't do game reviews or first impressions, and we don't talk about gameplay or the latest news in the gaming industry. Our main focus is with the lore, the stories, the characters, and the worlds that we jump into every time that we fire up our favorite games. If that sounds like your cup of tea, just search Lore Party on your favorite podcast platform and check out some of our episodes. Thanks for listening.
Nostalgia is one of the strongest forces in the human psyche and is responsible for the continued existence of some of our favorite fandoms. From the minds behind the Dole Up in Dreams podcast and Isolation Cast Voices from Quarantine, Saturday Morning Confidential takes you on a deep dive into the properties that helped influence the artists and creators of today. So whether you are a Goonie, a Gem Girl, a Digi-Destined, or you just want to return to Oz, new episodes release on Fridays bi-weekly starting January 1st of 2021, and join us on the Wednesdays after the main show for the Serial Killer Radio Hour, where we sit down with the people responsible for the toys, shows, and fandoms that you love. Now you can find Saturday Morning Confidential at certainpov.com/SMCpod or on your favorite podcast platforms. So don't forget to tune in for another deep dive into the files of Saturday Morning Confidential.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.